Welcome to the Multiverse Comics Podcast. On today's episode, we have Scott and Steven and a special guest, Leanne, joining us today. Unfortunately, I'm out of town, but sit back and enjoy. I sure did.
Once again, my esteemed colleague Steven, myself, and our special guest, my sister, Leanne. Dudes.
Hello.
Yes. So after the seriousness discussion that we had last time, now we're going to, I think, dive into something of far more importance, is Star Wars.
Huh.
How much of a geek are you? How much of a geek are you? And why are you a geek, though? Why are you a geek? When did you first know that you were a little different? Not looking at me. We already did this. Didn't you listen to our first episode? I laid out my entire life about that.
I mean,
Dad taking us to 7-Eleven on Sundays.
I do remember going to 7-Eleven and the Slurpee and the comic books. I do remember that. Specific to Star Wars?
Oh, just anything, really. We'll stumble into Star Wars, but what bit you first?
Maybe Snoopy?
Snoopy,
Muppets.
Okay.
But Star Wars came along when I was 6, so...
No, that's... I mean, as it should.
Kids are excited about things.
So
kids kind of latch on to things when they're little anyway.
Here's the litmus test.
Oh, dear.
Brace yourself. Okay. So, I feel that not you, but, the royal you.
Sure.
We know that we are geeks, that we've got that mindset when we have opinions about where the things that we love have gone. So you've mentioned Snoopy and you've mentioned the Muppets. Do you have an opinion on the Muppets as we see today as opposed to back in the 70s? Or is it all good to you?
I have not really partaken of current Muppets.
Okay.
Snoopy, I don't think is...
Not much has changed.
Not much has changed.
Okay. Well, now you get those, computer animated movies or the
Oh, yeah.
tweaks and things for Apple TV and stuff like that.
We saw one of the new Snoopy movies.
We did.
And just the art style, just very clean.
Yes.
It's not what I'm used to.
Right.
You've
got opinions.
I mean, I'm mad about it.
Yet.
But I don't consume the new Snoopy stuff. I stick with the old stuff. So it can be off here in its own little corner of the universe being new. And
well, we won't do that controversial deep dive as to what side of the ping pong table Franklin is sitting on.
Yeah. Franklin. I got that ornament though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But so sorry, I derailed. You said Snoopy, you said the Muppets, you said comic books from the 7-Eleven.
Yeah. We would go on Sundays, be a Slurpee and get comic books.
Be a Slurpee, comic books, and candy. You get to get like a trading card or...
Oh, yeah.
And me, my sister, and the neighbor kid before Brant. Then I don't remember what you just... Because I know some of these things you discovered because we were together as a set a lot of times. Like Mom would take us... we would go to movies together. It was very... we come as a set. We did. There were times that it was, Dad worked, Mom took us, Mom sat through Star Wars. Okay.
And I feel like it was on a Tuesday. I don't think...
it was something...
it was during the week.
Okay. And, the way I remember this is Northeast Mall... We didn't have a movie theater around here. So Northeast Mall was opening its first theater. 6 screens, but only 3 were open. And I remember when... Right. Yeah. Now it was in a different spot than this. Okay. It was a United Artists Theater, and it was around a whole different side. Oh, okay. Because there used to be houses all out in this neighborhood that the city of Hearst.
Move on.
Okay, yeah. Public domain and some... Okay. But so I remember the 3 movies. Star Wars, The Swarm, and one of the Pink Panther movies that were out at the time. That was the 3 that were available. There. So we go to see Star Wars, but it's opened later than the national release because the theater wasn't open yet.
Okay.
The only movie theater in Hearst at the time was up Pipeline, Bel Air Theater, which is now Artisan Theater, which is
No, it closed.
well, it's art house, but it was like currently it used to be where you could do little plays and shit, and it's all closed now, but it was one screen.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've driven past it.
Yeah.
I always think like, I wonder what that is.
That was, but they never had Star Wars.
Okay.
That's where I saw E.T. and Raiders. And then we had Richland Plaza, which is where we saw Empire Strikes Back. We see Star Wars here. So Mom takes us, you're right, it's like during the week.
Right.
But I don't remember what you experienced first, Star Trek or Star Wars. Because I remember finding Star Trek, Spock's Brain, on Channel 39, and was like, is that a much younger Wonder Woman in these go-go boots? What is this going on? And that's when Star Trek had my attention. But I can't remember, because every time you come in the room, I'd be watching. Yeah, we were kind of.
I mean, it was the past following you around. That's a given. I remember the books that were the production stills of Star Trek, and I remember looking through those. As far as connecting to Star Trek, I don't think I connected to Star Trek probably till the Wrath of Khan. I remember reading and rereading the screenplay adaptation novel. I read that over and over again, but I remember Star Wars had me from the jump.
Okay.
But I don't remember going to Mom and saying, we have to go see this movie.
Right.
I mean, again, I was 6.
Yeah, that was me. I remember that was me pestering about one of those 4 figures, damn it. And
I mean, I remember, the first shot where the ship's coming over, I remember looking around trying to see where it came from. But I don't know. I don't know why it grabbed me.
Yeah, we have this it's a shared experience. Star Wars is one of those great kind of shared experiences because it doesn't matter where you were. Everyone's kind of got an in or a similar, the hunt for those first few figures, oh, wow, they had trading cards in the 7-Eleven. I mean, wherever your life takes you, there are certain things. You mentioned the Swarm, though. I got to say, though, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I remember early Star Wars memory for me. I'm a year younger than you. So it was, I think, did Burger King, you might know the answer to this. Burger King had a Star Wars tie-in, and they were doing posters.
I do remember that.
Okay. Do you remember if that happened around about the time the film came out, or whether that was later?
I think that was later, a little later, because I think what happened was that while George Lucas held on to the merchandising rights, no one else had seen a movie like that.
Right.
And it ran longer in the theaters than most releases. So I think what happened is in the first couple of weeks, when it was making a shit ton of money, merchandisers had to catch up.
Right.
Because Burger King had like 4 posters.
Yes.
I remember one was a blue border, one was a brown border. I think one was like Luke, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, something else. And it was, the show was still in the theater, but it had been in there a while. And they did the production, because they were only they're bigger than 8x10. I don't think they were like big posters. I remember it was an odd size because Mom got us some.
Yeah.
And I remember sticking them on the wall, but like I had big Marvel posters, and the Marvel I was trying to line them up, and they didn't. And I was like, what the hell is this? I mean, they're a decent size poster, but it wasn't the Farrah Fawcett poster size.
No.
But yes, there was a Burger King there, and then they went to the glasses.
Yes.
Because we still have the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedis.
The reason why I asked about the posters, because I'm trying to line up some dates here in my head. There was I don't remember if it was me being in first grade of school or whether it was the summer camp that I used to go to. I don't remember, but I have a memory of there was a kid who showed up one day with one of those posters, and we were all like, oh my gosh, that's like, gosh. And like, he started the day, that poster was in pretty good condition. By the end of the day, this thing was a wreck. I mean, people had tried to grab it. I want it. Oh my God. It was Han Solo and Chewbacca. I mean, so
Yeah.
for more so, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. But the thing that always makes me think of the Swarm was, as kids would do, and I'm reasonably confident that you guys have a shared experience on this, playing Star Wars, you know, with your friends. I want to be Luke Skywalker. I want to be Luke Skywalker, or whatever. Doing this in this summer camp. And there was this one kid who was like, no, Star Wars sucks. No, the Swarm. Let's play the Swarm. And I remember him standing in this room that had ping pong tables in it and screaming out,
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. The bees! The bees are coming to get us. And he hid underneath the ping pong table. And we all just kind of was like, okay, well, back to Star Wars. That kid, you know, I wonder if he's still like, Star Wars sucks. You know, he grew up, he's got children, he might have grandchildren now at this point. The Swarm, that's the movie.
That's the movie
that
for
was
you
the
kids.
movie for you kids. The Swarm. Michael Caine, you know, has the reverence. Harrison Ford, he's a schmuck. Michael Caine, that's where you want to go. The Swarm, killer bees.
And this is more about, I really want this to be more about Leanne expressing her experiences, but I will point something out right now. In my neighborhood, I was the lone Star Wars fan.
Please tell me everybody else was into the Swarm.
No, they weren't in the Swarm. They were all sports. They were into everything else. So
jocks.
it was just a lot of different other things that, Jaws, all of that.
Right.
So I was very alienated. And I can't imagine what it was like for Leanne growing up, because my mother understood why I wanted to play with Star Wars toys.
Yes.
Mom never understood why she wanted to play with Star Wars toys.
I do remember it was okay for you to have the lunchbox.
Yes.
It was not okay for me to take the lunchbox to school.
And so,
But I had a Snoopy lunchbox, and a Muppet lunchbox.
I got the figures. I think she got some later. I got the vehicles, and she didn't get the vehicles.
Right.
And sometimes we'd share. Sometimes I was a dick. I didn't want to share my stuff, period. But so for us like that, in other circumstances, that would come later, that it was the fact she developed into such a science fiction fan. That's why this is almost a revelation to me. I don't know. The first time I really remember her gravitating to Star Wars was when the Timothy Zahn books came out.
Oh, no. See, Star Wars was the first movie I remember seeing over and over again.
This is why I'm interested. We watched and all that, but like, I knew you had the books, but I remember how excited you got when the first Zahn book came out, because you were in college, and I was like, hey,
just out. Yeah.
I found this book, and you're like, holy crap, and then you beat me to it. So
yeah, and Andrea was a big Star Wars person.
yeah, you got a lot more geeks on your side.
Yeah. Well, I was in band, so I was in band through college.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So,
But you both have, you have the luxury, or you have the experience, because now if you're into Star Wars, you're surrounded by Star Wars. You can have Star Wars content shoved down your throat 24/7 if you like. But in that period between 1983 to early to mid, when did the Zahn books start coming out? It was early
88. 88.
Was it that soon?
no.
Well, I was in the apartment.
No.
No, yeah, I'll take a
If
look.
only we had
Only
something.
had to pick that up.
I thought.
I was assistant manager at Blockbuster. Might have been 90s.
I was.
Era, what's that one?
Era of the Empire. Yeah. It's the Empire.
I will see.
We're going to just have dead silence.
Yeah.
Why.
We are. It's on
Meditative.
That's
silence.
it.
Well, and more about, so we're talking about as, growing up. And,
Yeah. So there's that gap where, we are Star Wars fans. We love the Star Wars. But because of XYZ, we do not have a plethora of content like what we do right now. So you've got the movies.
There were some books. There was
There was the Lando book. There's 3 Han Solos.
There was the
Under the
Marvel
Mind
comics.
Blair Lynch's Eye.
There were comics.
Alan Dean Foster.
But,
May 91.
May 91. Okay.
but I mean, back to the whole reading thing. I think we are interested in read history because our dad was interested in read history. There was no science fiction in the house. Not really.
No.
Not that and
Those photo
Mom-
novels I got.
Mom reads, well, when she read mysteries. But I don't know how we got sucked
Well,
into it.
I mean, I think for me it was, yeah, I mean, I know you exposed to it because of me, but I don't know what grabbed you, because I think through comics, you found the Star Wars comics, and I find the Star Wars comics, and I find the Star Wars books, those big Marvel treasuries.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I'm finding Star Trek on Channel 39.
Mm-hmm. And there were
And-
only 5 channels to watch,
Yeah.
so it's not,
So
it's not like there was a lot.
I'm gravitating to that, and then found, once again, mom always took us to bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
We never had a problem going to bookstores. And I'd find the Star Trek stuff, but I do remember if Leanne mimicked that, Mom thought, why don't you want a Barbie book? Right. And Leanne had to forge her own way more than I did with some of that. And not a pity party or that, but so what grade do you feel like it hooked you? I mean, Star Wars grabbed you, meaning you like the droids. I remember that.
I liked the droids.
You were a
In
big,
college, we wrote parodies, and we wrote a Star Wars.
okay. It's only cause, but
Dipping down into the whole nerd thing.
yes.
I was on the student newspaper as a freelance writer in college, and when we were bored waiting for production night, this is when it actually had to print out and everything. But we would write parodies, and we wrote a Star Wars parody, and I was R2-D2.
No, there we go.
There you go.
That's the nerd I am. But I don't know. I mean, I was 6, and it was this big, loud fantasy thing, and it was cool to watch. And I don't know why it hooked me. It's that good versus evil story that everybody can relate to.
Yes.
It was nothing we'd seen before.
Oh, and you talked about reading Star Trek, the motion picture novel.
Mhm.
I didn't remember
The Wrath of
that.
Khan.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the Wrath of Khan, you read that over, and then that's when.
So I was
did
probably 12 or 13.
So did
That's when
did Star Trek the movies grab you first for the TV?
I think this, not so much the
First movie?
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
the first, yeah. I mean,
Don't
good
say-
effort, but maybe the Wrath of Khan. I mean, I like the original series, I guess,
Mhm.
and I remember watching it over and over again because it came on Channel 39 at 9:00 at night or whatever.
Right.
And there are a couple of episodes that I like, and if I see it on that whatever that H&I channel is every now and then,
Yeah.
I'll go back and watch. And I guess it's the characters that I like, not necessarily the show. I guess I'm not explaining this well.
No, I think you're doing just fine actually, because there's I had this thing with my wife, because she was not really a geek or had like any kind of geek sensibilities when we met. I mean, she liked Star Wars, but if you asked her what she liked about Star Wars, she would say Han Solo. Okay. And I'm sure there's sort of a, I could be a good Princess Leia to Harrison Ford's Han Solo. She'd totally smack me for saying that. But she really didn't have much of an interest in anything else. And then I consume a lot of Star Trek, so I watch a lot of Star Trek. And as we're getting on, she really got into Deep Space Nine. She loves Deep Space Nine. And when asked why, it's not because it's Star Trek. She could really kind of care less about the whole sci-fi and phases and stuff. She loves the drama. She loves there's some romance in there. There's some action, and there's drama, and there's high stakes, and there's intelligence. And that's what she loves. So it's less about science fiction and more about having access to something that, this is actually really good stuff. It's why she's not a huge fan of other Star Trek properties, although she has come to appreciate, I think the sexiness of Jean-Luc Picard. Anytime Jean-Luc Picard is talking about his private yacht, she's all over that. But I'm digressing.
No, that's fine.
But anyway.
So you're probably more of a, so do you feel like do you latch on the Next Generation more than the original? Because I remember we started watching Next Generation together when you were home from school.
I mean, I remember being excited that there was going to be a Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we can go into the more current stuff too.
Sure, why not?
Because lower decks.
I know, we're all lower deckers deep down.
Sure.
But Next Generation, everybody knew who LeVar Burton was. I had recognized Jonathan Frakes because I watched North and South.
Yeah.
So kind of already had that connection.
Right.
God,
North and South.
Yeah, and that's a book I read when I was 13 that I probably shouldn't have read when I was
It's all
13.
good.
Yeah, it's all great. We're all doing good things. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's as to why it appealed to me, any of it. Maybe it's the Found Family, maybe it's the Merry Band of Misfits.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
That's why Harry Potter is so appealing. Before everybody found out he was a jerk, everything Joss Whedon ever touched was Merry Band of Misfits.
Yes.
Maybe that's what it is.
I think that's a big part of it. I think this is where you kind of get this thing about, I think it's Simon Pegg talks about, finding your tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It ruins you for the workplace because you think everything's going to be like the Bridge of the Enterprise and how they all get along and all that.
Yeah, that's true. And that's like, oh, so in the future we kind of will get over our personal petty bullshit and come together for a common goal.
No.
Isn't that
Where's the fun in
communism? No,
we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. That's more about there's no money.
That's right. That's
Set
quite
the free.
right. But you are showing geek credentials.
I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt.
Yes, no, it's more than that. There's more.
Theater
There's
of the
more.
mind, people. Theater of the mind.
You're divulging things about yourself. Okay. In that you have openly admitted reading novelizations. Now, that's something you don't really get now.
No,
That's not a thing anymore. But there was that time where you can't have movie content, you can't have TV content, you can have novelizations.
And that's like the only book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So I did not read Wrath of Khan, but I had the Star Trek novelization for Star Trek 4. I read that probably a half dozen times. Because that's it. You want the fix.
Yeah.
But you can't get the fix because we don't have streaming.
They've released the book a month before the movie.
Actually, I was in England. It was shot
Oh,
way off.
that was I would get the book and then sit there and go, okay, I've got it. But I got to wait for the movie. And by the end of the afternoon, I'm tearing. So,
And it wasn't written for the young adult lens or for
No.
I mean, it was
just a book.
yeah,
half the time Peter David wrote them.
and yeah. But I remember buying one at the grocery store.
Yeah.
But
Without shame.
truly, yes,
Head up.
Yes.
I will
Yes.
buy this book.
I will be the kid that walks out of here with a book.
Damn it.
That was me.
Spare me your judgment. Exactly.
Well, and it's fascinating to listen to this because I just remember there's a lot of pleasant memories. Like she would come over to my apartment when she come in from school. We watched Best of Both, the Borg episodes.
Mhm.
Right.
And
And that had a novelization.
yeah,
It had a
it did.
Mhm.
That
Okay.
the
remember.
Spock the Spock episode
Mhm.
had a novelization. We had that.
Unification.
Yeah, unification. And then the when Lore tried to take over the Borg, that was the last one that
Yeah.
they did. And we had different pacings because when I got into Star Trek, I got interested in the ships too. Like I had the blueprints. I would sit there and I would have 50 Star Trek books, and we recently cleaned out her room at Mom's house, and there were still some things. I was like, oh, she's still out her Star Trek or you saw her Star Wars comics. You're over there. Some of these other books that, and I'm like, and now here I go. Well, she did read that, and it
Just had a flash of expecting your poor sister to turn around to me and go, what are you doing in my room?
no. I was,
Hey,
I was hauling trash.
the hell?
She put me to work. That's where I'm going to sack these up. These are heavy. Take this shit out of here. That's what how that
As well you
yeah, that's and so you and I were talking about my sister and I were talking about Deep Space Nine just today. So when we look at the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, arc, and you're recently you finished up Enterprise.
I did finish up Enterprise.
So you went through that. What's your thoughts on? You missed some of it. You came back to watch it.
I remember watching the beginning of it.
Which one?
Enterprise.
Okay.
And my hot take on prequels is that it's very hard to build suspense when you already know how it's going to end.
Agreed.
And so I probably gave up on Enterprise earlier than maybe I should have. What's my take on it? And maybe I feel like I like it better because I've been watching their podcast with the two dudes.
Okay. Dominic and Connor.
Yes.
Who we met at the convention.
Who we met at the convention.
He hiked his leg up on you.
He did. I should have flipped him, but I like especially the last part of Deep Space Nine. I think the storytelling is really good. I think it's a very different perspective when every other starship swoops in, Federation's all over everything, and then leaves. But Deep Space Nine, they have to live with the decisions.
Yes.
And that's very different storytelling.
It is.
I like Worf. I don't know that people liked Worf on being on Deep Space Nine, but I like Worf. But I didn't think Enterprise was that bad. I
loved it.
I love Scott Bakula. I think he's great and everything. Everybody seems to love working for him or with him. So he seems to be a good dude. In this era of hearing about how people that we like are jerks,
Yes.
it's good to know that he's not one of them.
Right.
Maybe go back and watch Voyager. I don't know.
Well, let's touch on Voyager. 'Cause I know your memory's probably a little fresher on that because we did go through Voyager together.
I thought Voyager was okay. I thought Voyager was fine. Listening to their podcast that Garrett and what's his
Garrett
name?
Wong and
Robert Duncan McNeil.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot more drama behind the scenes there.
It sounds like there was some drama behind the scenes there, but it was fine, I guess. But I think Deep Space Nine might be my favorite as far as a narrative thing. I think Next Generation, again, the whole found family and working with your tribe of weirdos every day, I think they did that really well.
Yes.
But Enterprise had a good story. And a dog.
Porthos.
Right.
The true hero.
And
Right.
for me with Enterprise, like you, who are these aliens that look like Vulcans in their visible ship? They're Romulans. They're writing to that drove me crazy. I enjoyed the series, and even though people bang on the Zendi storyline and the way the last season went, I think you had to go that way because you had to give the audience something they hadn't seen before.
Mm-hmm. Because they knew they were.
Yeah, they were lucky enough to grab Jeffrey Combs to play Shran, because you could run that Andorian storyline for a while. The Suliban, okay, fine, it's kind of a yawny. Oh, he's the villains. We don't know who these are. Never heard of them again until Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm.
You had to kind of take that trajectory, but hey, we're going to go over here and do something we've never seen before. But then that ended up being, they keep trying to blame 9/11 for killing the show. That's not what killed the show. It killed the show because they moved it to fucking Friday nights. And any time in Star Trek's history it moves to Friday nights, what happens?
Any show that moves to Friday nights.
So, I wish that team would get the chance to wrap up something better than what they got. And then we take a break for a while. We go.
And that's true too. The market was probably saturated with Star Trek.
Yeah, we took a break from Star Trek and Star Wars for a while, and then we got JJ showed up in both universes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, yeah,
He did both.
Yeah, you're right.
And,
Yeah,
and
sure did.
Might want to, I don't know, skip that and come to.
Well, it kind of goes back to the content thing. Is that if there's more content, then there's always the risk that it's not going to be great.
Well, I only in the last couple of years learned of all the legal issues, actually for both sides. But when JJ showed up for Star Trek, because Paramount and CBS had shared rights, the reason why the Enterprise in the Abrams movies took off from the ground and looked so different is that they couldn't use 51% of a particular element. They had to be below this particular percentage, or they had to pay one studio more money. Because Paramount and CBS, that's why they didn't call them Jeffrey tubes, because CBS owned Jeffrey tubes. There were little things they had to change the engine design. So there was a lot of that. That's why they had to. That's why the whole Kelvin storyline was created, because they had to operate in a different universe. They kind of explained the legalese of this. And it's the same problem that Paramount's getting ready to have with this Skymount or
Skydance, I think.
Skydance is bought into the Paramount universe.
Okay.
They're trying to buy the Paramount part and drop the CBS part because the Paramount group is struggling. And the advisors to Skydance have said cancel all Star Trek so you can start it up under your brand, because Alex Kurtzman has exclusive rights till 2026. Okay. And the Skydance people were like, hey, we want to tell our own Captain Pike stories, but we have a whole different cast in mind.
Huh.
Once again, stems from these complicated issues of CBS and Paramount, because CBS had Star Trek under Gene Roddenberry, because CBS was broadcast TV, UPN, Paramount, Voyager, Enterprise. That all failed under Paramount. They still one owns the movie rights, one owns the TVs. So then you went and made a movie. So you couldn't use the exact.
Right.
Even at the end of the last Star Trek movie, when they changed up the Enterprise to almost look like the movie version with the A, they couldn't streamline the nacelles the same way as the movie one. You had to have, you could look like the Enterprise, but you couldn't look like the exact movie. So,
it's amazing that anything ever gets done.
So, and thank God for Eugene Roddenberry trying to keep his father's dream alive and negotiating with all these people. That's a little deep dive on the other way before it's going to. But JJ ran into some problems with Star Wars, even because Lucas had sold it to Disney. So there were certain little things. I mean, they had the whole kit and caboodle, but there were some things he couldn't do either, which ended up with,
like, have a good story.
Well, that or put the three old farts together we wanted to see. But whoever thought Carrie would have died. But I digress. So.
That's another show.
Yeah. So now we get to, and I know you weren't early to the I got on Paramount to watch Discovery first. I know you're just now getting done with Discovery.
Yes.
You've done the Picards.
Yes.
You've done Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
You've done Lower Decks.
Yes.
So where do you want to ride the river on this? Opinion wise on because Steve and I did a whole episode that we haven't produced yet or released yet on. It took me 2 years to get Steven to watch Picard season 3.
Well,
but I want to hear.
I mean,
thoughts.
Lower Decks, I loved it. It didn't take I'm not going to say anything new, but it didn't take itself too seriously. You can do a lot in animation.
Yes.
Again, the Found Family, the Merry Band of Misfits, we're all lower deckers. Not everybody's an exemplar.
Right.
We're all just kind of struggling to get through it day after day.
Moopsie the Bone Vampire. And Badgie.
I
love Badgie. You can't, hey.
But it's fun. It's okay to have fun. It's not all serious. It's not always the fate of the universe. It can be fun. The show can be entertaining. Now, I don't know if it could hold up 26 episodes, year after year after year. And I think shorter seasons make it for better storytelling. There aren't as many filler episodes. You have to get to the point. Discovery, I feel like they never really had a good plan for what they were going to. If they wanted her to be captain, she should have been captain from the beginning. It's like they were kind of field testing this character, and if people don't like her, okay, well then,
Captain of the
yeah, we can do something else with her. I feel like they tied her to Spock just to. That never made sense. Just to have a safety net in case people didn't like her, and that's a shame because I think she does a good job. I just don't think they did well or right by her, Sonequa, especially at the beginning. I don't think they had a good plan for that.
The only thing I absorbed Discovery. It's another one of those problems of a prequel. For those of you who are familiar, it's set about, 20 years before Kirk?
I guess.
Because Pike shows up, Strange New Worlds.
Not even that long, really.
Yeah. They redid the Klingons where they're all bald, they have no hair. They're trying to explain things you didn't need explained. The only good thing that came out of it is that we got a Captain Pike that spun off into Strange New Worlds.
And that's, to me, is kind of a reflection of they didn't have a good plan for her.
Yeah, they didn't. And I know you're not familiar with Discovery as much. And it was set, the idea was Strange New Worlds is 10 years before Kirk takes over the Enterprise. So Discovery was about
maybe 8, 15 years.
Yeah. It dealt with the Klingon War the Federation had, which was dealt with in about 2 episodes. Then we had to go to the Mirror Universe.
And that's when it got interesting because to me, they didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah, that's right. It's a sad, here's the 2 things about Discovery that I think is sad. The show was interesting when it wasn't being what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
If I have to take the X-Men and pit them against the Justice League for my story to work, then I have a bad X-Men story.
Yes.
Discovery went, we can't figure out this Klingon War thing, so we're going to put them for 8 episodes in the Mirror Universe, and you're going to get to see all the evil versions of all this, and then we're going to come back. And the season finale of the first season was the Enterprise that you always wanted to see showed up with Pike. So now, in order to fix season 2, we got the Enterprise running around with you, which they tried to separate themselves by going, hey, Discovery, it's its own special ship.
Right.
So to fix that story problem, you told a Captain Pike Star Trek Enterprise story all through season 2. And then to fix the next season, because the Discovery had technology that no other ship had. It had a jump drive. They had the tap communicators. They had all this stuff that was not part of the regular Federation.
And this is before original series.
Yes. Kirk is an ensign at this point.
Right.
Because this is a scientifically advanced ship. They just happened to build this one. So in order to fix that, at the end of season 2, they jumped him into the 30th century,
Right.
where the Federation has been blown up, where warp drive was not viable because all the dilithium blew up at the same time.
Well, like,
There's a whole story thread for it, but so we lost all the dilithium, but this ship can jump through the mycelial network.
Mushrooms.
So it's going to resurrect the Federation. They got a lot of hopping to do.
okay.
And then season 4 is that great eyeball that's attacking the galaxy.
Yes.
So we have a great godlike eyeball that's being misunderstood and blowing up planets and suns.
Like you do.
As happens.
But the guy that played the from The Mummy, remember he's playing that admiral from...
Oh, yeah. Oded Fair. Yeah.
He's an admiral. And this Starfleet trying to pull together. He's got his own show coming up, too. It's going to be cool. I'm actually going to watch that with Holly Hunter, Star Trek Academy. Yes. In the 30th century. Oh, gosh. So we're done with that Discovery season. And now we're going to deal with, which was kind of interesting, the Breen. You get to see the Breen
Right.
because they're now the aggressors in the Orion Syndicate. And then it wraps it up with just kind of a sailing off in the way. But that was where Leanne's talking about they didn't have a plan. I will give Discovery credit for bringing Star Trek back to some kind of relevancy because we got these other shows. We got Strange New Worlds, which you enjoy.
Yes.
We got a better season of Picard.
Right.
And we got Lower Decks, all because they started with Discovery. But Discovery is a train wreck of, what is this?
Well, okay.
So I overtalked my sister, so we got
okay.
Discovery.
No, and that's...
Did I describe it close enough?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it. It's not awful. It's maybe it's better than Voyager sometimes.
Sometimes it is.
Um,
That's kind of hard to. More because we recently, you realize when Jerry Ryan was sleeping with a lot of people behind the scenes, that kind of
Don't say things like that because you just ruin it, Fanny.
but Strange New Worlds, I like.
I love it.
I like that.
Hey, so does Steven.
Yeah,
Steven's a
I do.
fan of
I do
that.
quite like that. Some people can watch or read anything and everything, and it doesn't affect their love or their passion for it. I am not one of those people.
Oh, okay.
If you give me enough crap, I will start to go off. And then it doesn't matter how much of it I loved. The overriding Star Wars is a very good example of this. Okay, so I've gone in my lifetime as a Star Wars fan. I've gone from the heights of not only do I want Star Wars to permeate every little aspect of my life, as a kid, of course, Star Wars sheets, Star Wars toothbrush, Star Wars lunchbox.
You had all of it. I just had the sheets. You had the bedspread.
Star Wars.
Just mad about that.
I'm just saying.
Pencil case. Star Wars. Oh, God. You name it. If it was available, if it was commercially available between 1977 and, let's say, 1983, I probably either had it or wanted it, or at the very least had said to my mom or my dad at some point, "Can I have that?" Okay. And then it didn't take much. It just took some suspicious prequels and a few other bits and pieces, and then it's like, oh no, I can't. It's really hard for me to connect with. I don't know, maybe age has got something to do with that as well. Okay, but give me enough crap, and I'll start to kind of go off. Star Trek, I think that's one of the reasons why I've been very, very picky about what I will expose myself to. Yeah, I said it. When it comes to Star Trek, because I remember loving Deep Space Nine and then getting into Voyager and being like, I think this show can actually ruin Star Trek for me, because it seemed to be a poor man's attempt to just recreate Next Generation. The fact that they flung them onto the other side of the I don't care about that. It's wagon train in space. It's the same. And what are they going to stumble across this week? But that had been done to death. And so
And that for me is why Voyager is just kind of benign. It's just kind of neutral. It's like,
there was nothing there, but there's a boredom element to it, which I will freely admit. When they started to get all Borgy and 7 of 9E and stuff like that.
And I enjoyed the Borg stuff.
Kind of pick up,
But that's another one of those, they had to move Worf over to Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Same trick.
Yeah, that is very true. Because those first 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine are a bit of a snooze fest. But once you get Worf, and then you kind of get the whole Dominion thing, and then it becomes, Casablanca in space, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so damn good.
Well, I've been hopping through it, and I went from a different perspective. I wanted to watch the Quark and Odo relationship build, because I've knew that the actors really had an affinity for each other, so getting to watch them play off each other.
Yeah.
In some of those weaker episodes is still fun. It's like, oh, this is where they're developing their chemistry and they're refining it. And the fact that, Armin wanted, every time there was a Ferengi episode, he'd round them all up weeks before, and they'd rehearse at his house. So he knew that would be the episode, and to see how much he cared about that role was fun for me in Deep Space Nine. So we go to Strange New Worlds, we get the musical episodes, we get the, Then we got Picard in there.
Yes.
So, season 1, season 2, season 3. I know you just...
I mean...
Are you feeling that this is an interrogation yet?
No.
Oh.
Sort of a geek interrogation?
No. Well,
then clearly you're not doing good in this
I guess
job,
I guess I'm not.
Forget
I
the
guess,
hot lamps.
I didn't love Picard season 1 and season 2.
No,
I wanted it to be...
No, I've even said, which one did I say was the strongest one?
I don't know if it's strong or not. It's good or bad. It's just what you like.
Yeah.
And I really like the third one. I think that's probably what they should have gone with in the first place. That's my opinion.
It's just a gem. I can appreciate original storytelling, and we have a diverse opinion in the shop. And what I mean is the three of us here are on the same page, and someone else wants original stories. And granted, I will say, second season when we have the temporal rift and the new Borg sitting there, and we all just go, "Oh yeah, y'all gonna be guarding that hole? Look, the Next Generation cast is back." I'm fine with that. Brent Spiner wearing the cakey makeup in season 1, you accept that because you wanted to see it. But then when you see season 3, you're like, this is the one I'm going to rewatch. Because you said it was it wasn't, while it was fan service, it was a love letter.
Yes. And I think there is a difference.
Yeah.
There is an absolute difference, because we did talk about that. We talked about, we had a conversation with Jason, and Jason was, I love fan service. And I'm like, yeah, well, great, good for you. But I think there is a difference. Fan service will only get, fan service will get you to the door, but it won't. You got to give me something else to get me into the house.
Yeah.
There's got to be a pull in there. Which is why the conversation we've had with John about how his view that Lower Decks is not Star Trek. And it's like, well, why? And hopefully he wouldn't mind me quoting him if he actually listens to this. Is that his assertion that these people are really stupid. There's no way in hell they would get into Starfleet. And I'm like, well, okay. I've known some academically really bright people whose personalities are somewhat fractured. I don't think this is unheard of. But the spirit of fun, the spirit of adventure that you get with Lower Deck, this is absolutely Star Trek. I think this is the most Star Trek-y Star Trek that we've had in a very, very long time. And it also happens to be quite funny. But again, your mileage will vary, as somebody says.
And we've said and talked that while you could say maybe these people would have gotten in the academy or whatever, Mariner's crook in a way. All the rules. So if I challenge you, if you have Kirk playing with tribbles, big, green hand holding the ship, got different gods every week showing up to blow you all up.
Mm-hmm.
Not the most serious.
No.
It was the movies that made him ultra heroic, fighting Khan. I mean, to me, the movie Kirk is more of a half the time the Enterprise in the original series was falling apart, flying apart at the seams, pushing the ship too much. We've joked about this. Every Commodore was crazy.
Yes.
Every admiral got blown up. So to me, Mariner's journey is almost like a Lieutenant Kirk. It's Strange New Worlds almost makes him more serious. Other than the second pilot where they talked about how Kirk was a serious teacher. That wasn't the guy we got in the rest of the original series. So anytime I've had a couple people to tell me, they don't think Lower Decks is, all Star Trek canon. I was like, because, the California class is treated and all that. I was like, there's probably garbage scows in Starfleet that aren't well received.
Again, not everything's an exemplar. Not everybody gets to be at the top of the class.
But it's an interesting, it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting conversation to have. Well, right up until the point where it becomes an annoying conversation to have, let's be honest.
I mean, they let Nog into Starfleet.
So we're having this conversation with
Love knowledge.
a guest, that we have here, about your introduction to the geek life, your relationship with the geek life, and that's where this is interesting, because you can have a conversation about, well, what is it that attracts you to these kinds of stories, or this sort of science fiction universe? And if you're talking about Star Trek, you can have one response, which will be it's the relationships, it's the romance, the adventure, and the danger,
found family,
and band of misfits, as you say. And then you can have that other opinion, which is like, no, I like this idea of a very ordered, structured. I'm going to read all those blueprint books that they put out, and kind of almost like, these ships don't actually exist. They don't fly. Shut up, Stephen. You're killing my buzz for all of this. I want to examine these technical manuals, sort of embracing the mythology of it. To that, it's like, well, okay, so do you watch the show? Would you be happy to watch a 16-minute Star Trek episode where all they do is stand around in engineering and talk about engineering principles in Galaxy-class starships for an hour? There's no drama, there's no romance, no one dies, there's no danger. It is literally just a conversation about tech.
I don't know.
I wasn't actually asking.
Well, no, but
you look like you're trying to answer. So now I'm asking.
Because I am correlating back to that. I did have all those blueprint books because I was very
put my foot in it.
No. The reason why I got it, when Star Wars came out, and I've said this, why I personally got hooked on Star Trek more than Star Wars. Star Wars, you had all this content, all stuff available. Then in '83, it all stopped. Comics,
yes,
all that.
Kind of.
Well, I mean, it took Marvel wrapped up with issue 107. It was a little bit after Return, because after Return of Jedi, I think they turned on for 2 more years, but they didn't really have anything. And by then, I kind of fell out of. The art was so bad, I didn't buy those issues.
We had the Lazenby.
The what? Those little white fuzzy?
Yeah.
I didn't have a toy for it. But Star Trek kept cranking out.
If I remember that.
Yeah, I can't believe you did either. I saw them in my mind, and I didn't know.
These are the little cute little things where they suddenly, they go through like that puberty shift, and all of a sudden they become these like giant abominable snowmen types.
It's crazy. But Star Trek kept
trades over there. Hope so.
Yeah. Star Trek kept cranking out novels.
Yeah, I did read a lot of those for college.
Those that were in the movie verse. So they're and so I was constantly new novel out every month. Star Wars, I had the 3 Han Solo novels. I had the 3 Lando novels, and then we didn't have anything else. Then we had droids on TV. I wasn't going to watch that. That looked ridiculous.
Mungo Baobab.
Yes.
All right.
So when the technical books came out, I was always interested in just, it's fantasy. And I don't think I could sit and just listen to an entire engineering, because I'm not a physics guy. She has her physics friend. I have my physics friend. They could have probably.
They never meet.
Well, they
have met, actually.
Well, they have met, and it was terrifying. So we made a pact that this wasn't ever going to happen again for the good of the planet.
Right. The great are good.
But I liked building models. So
that's right, you did.
So I would love building the ships, and I would take the book and try to make it. But I was no artist. I couldn't spray paint. But I built the models, and it was always fascinating. Kind of I hope someday I get to see this.
Right. Okay.
The thing of Star Trek telling you, you're going to have especially, the last few years, thinking that there is going to be a better tomorrow. Well, that ship, to me, was the idea that if I looked up one day, NASA built that.
Yes.
I was like, oh, almost there. I hope I would, even though Neil deGrasse Tyson tells me you can't go faster than light, can't go past Warp 1, any of that stuff. I wanted to listen.
He knows.
Yeah, you know.
He doesn't know Muppets. He got a Muppet question wrong on Celebrity
Yeah,
Jeopardy.
there you go. But I always felt like
It all comes back to Muppets.
if we broke it does. If we broke that faster than light barrier,
Yeah.
then we're one step closer to a much better world. In my mind, no, there's no rational reason, but you're like, okay, the Star Trek verse is just closer. Leaving out that we have to have, you know, Khan and the augments and World War III and, you know, but
You're right.
that-
You are right. I think that especially for Star Trek, people who like Star Trek, on whichever level they're comfortable with, tend to be the more optimistic, the more hopeful, the more, let's hang in there, gang.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. No, I think that's very true. That's very true. And so which way that manifests, it's all good because that's what you want. You want more people to be thinking, you know, what is it? The soundtrack that they released for the motion picture, when they released it on CD, it came with a second disc, and it was, I guess, they were recordings from the 1970s of Gene Roddenberry at a convention. I've got it actually. If you've never listened to it, it's quite fascinating because Roddenberry attended a science fiction convention in the 70s, and he was talking about some of his philosophy when it comes to the show and dealing with network execs and things like that. But then there's a bit where Roddenberry is having a conversation with DeForest Kelley, and he was saying that, you know, one of the great things that Star Trek has done for him are the number of people who've gone into and had careers in the medical profession because they loved Dr. McCoy. Now, obviously, DeForest Kelley is not a doctor, and he is. Oh, I just play one on TV, but to be the inspiration, that's it. I think that's where Star Trek kind of holds that special place. And I know James Doohan, where people say they went into engineering because of Scotty. I myself am a huge fan of using rapier swordsman Olympic class because of no. This is a captain sound. Bad Russian everything.
Yeah. I too stand in my shower and hope it's a transporter and beams me out. So yes,
Exactly.
that's
Oh, heck, yeah. Oh, man, come on. We've all done that. And some of us still do today. But no, I think you're absolutely right. So have which way that manifests, whether it's just on a tertiary level or whether you really get into the nitty gritty of it, building models or what have you.
and it was so fascinating. Like comic book writers were writing some of those books. I keep coming back to Peter David. I was discovering his Star Trek when I was discovering his Star Trek comics, his novels, and then his Hulk.
Right.
That was all right there.
Yeah.
I keep stealing the show from my sister. You know, I know she read some and she kept up with those novels too.
Not every single one of them, but
No.
like I kept up with the Peter David ones just
Yeah.
because.
And he was so nice when we met him.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like we said, there was more Star Trek stuff to consume at that point.
And someone pointed out, and I'll put this out here to the class, talking about Lower Decks, asking why someone hasn't done a show like that for the Star Wars universe. You can kind of say Rebels, Clone Wars, but, you know, think about if you can be lighthearted and still being canon, they've said it's in canon, why haven't they done, why is it, I'm going to put Skeleton Crew aside because they weren't trying to be funny in this one. They just wrapped up. Why is there not why is that group never gone down that road of trying to have a little lighthearted?
Well, it took Star Trek this long to do it.
It did.
Because they learned their lesson with that holiday special.
You know what? When it came out, I was a fan. I just didn't know what was wrong with Mark Hamill's face.
They put Beatrice Arthur in there.
B. Arthur? Yeah.
And hell followed.
That was America's grandmother.
And there's more. That's I think we've tortured your sister enough for what we.
I hope she enjoyed
Not
this.
tortured.
I hope she enjoyed this, and I hope she's willing to come back. Might give her more subject matter to get fiery about.
We had a good conversation, and now we're having kind of a geeky getting to know you. Very hygienic, unobtrusive sort of.
Well, and even knowing her as long as I have.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Well, you come as a set.
we do come as a pair, but the last 15 years of the convention experience was kind of a random one, where I picked up the phone one day. I was like, "Hey, Patrick Stewart and Q are going to be in town
Down the street, yeah.
Down the street. Do you want to go? We can take a picture with them." That was our first together.
Right.
Now, the very first one I ever took was with Adam West with Cliff, but then we did that, and that's now turned into twice a year we have long strategy meetings about how we're going to
How we're going to get there. Yeah.
What's gonna,
What level of tolerance for.
and
I don't like people. It's tough sometimes. It's
You're in
tough.
good company.
It's all right.
well, and we
You make eye contact with people though, see, and you jeopardize the group when you do that.
people start talking to me, and I don't, I don't know what to do. Like that lady at Meltzer's thing that standing in front of me, we're waiting in line. We're laying in line for the autographs. We're just standing there, and she just turns around, starts talking to me about her life. And later, Leanne's like, "Did you know her?" I was like, "I had no idea who that was." She was showing me pictures of her earrings that were Brad Meltzer books, and she was letting me know how many times she had met Brad, and Brad seemed to know her. And I'm like, "Look, I don't know who you are," but that's always, I get that from Dad.
No, you get that from wanting to throw the group under the bus.
No, the Dad would talk.
That sounds like a Brad Meltzer groupie. I mean, do they?
She probably. She
Do
would
they call
probably
them
qualify.
Melties?
I don't know, but we used to meet people there that were at the conventions.
Yeah, I've seen people there.
We were like, "Oh, you're cosplaying? Hey, what's going on?" But
Yeah, but it's just a knowing nod. It's
Right.
not engaging somebody in a conversation. And
I was getting ready to comment on our, we've had, and you went to we did a whole episode on the Dallas Comic Vid. And so we were used to that. And I think I told you this, we went to our first Star Trek convention in a long time here in Dallas, not too long ago. And we were ready for war. We're coming up to the parking garage, and there's no attendant. No one's asking for money. First off, we're like this: are we in the right place? Is this it? We got our, backpacks full of bottled water and food and all of that. We park, we walk in, we're like, "This is our weekend, right?"
And somebody had a T-shirt, and we're like,
Yeah,
okay, we're in the right place.
We're at spot. And then we go to the vendor room. We're like, "Okay, this isn't really a vendor room. What the hell is this?"
About this size.
Yeah. And then, the main drive of this convention is just the big panel where you can go in and listen to them. But everyone was well behaved, very polite. We saw talent just sitting down. We're chatting up. We go on our photo ops. We're like, we're used to photo ops, so we have to stand in line 20 minutes.
Right.
By the time we get up there, I can't feel my legs. She's reminding people I don't know my name. So we've been standing in line so long. We're sweating. Nathan Fillion had sweat running down his chest in our photos because of waiting in line. We're like number one or number two to go see the talent. And they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're chatting with us. We're going, "This is a convention, right?" I mean, so what I've learned is our Star Trek fandom and the stuff are much more better behaved human beings than
the horde of
the Dallas.
Yeah, I go along with that.
But that's been our adventure from that one Picard picture with Delancey to, okay, we got these. Okay, we got this one yet? No. Okay, we're gonna do this and this. Is like Jason laughs at our family photos they are the most photos of me and Leanne and I are convention photos, other than when we were 4 at Christmas. But that was, so.
But yeah, the Dallas convention's like, okay, please be on Sunday. Please, that person I want to see be on Sunday, because I don't want to go on Saturday.
Well, Stephen had a horrible experience that he's never going back. So
no, that's not true. I will, but the next time I will go on the Friday.
Yeah, or Friday.
Yeah, I will avoid the weekend.
And we could talk all night about how the comic book convention is no longer a comic book convention. So
That's true.
It's just
That's
the
true.
convention.
And that one time, the one in Irving, we went on a Sunday and I'm like, oh my God, people aren't trying to murder each other. People are being polite and being respectful of the line. And
that's good because I'm getting older and I can't bounce them around like I used to.
It's just a shake.
Kushkas Hersel.
All right.
Well, I guess we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for
indeed
coming.
That's it.
Warms my heart to hang out with you as always. And hopefully you'll want to come back and do this again.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, there we go, kids. And maybe sometime Tim Jason will come back from Budapest or whatever. And
did he ever really come back the first time?
I don't know. Is
he ever really here?
Did he ever really leave?
God.
See, that's he may just it may be my cologne. That's just Thank you as always. Listen to this. Let's end this.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Multiverse Comics Podcast. If you'd like to come and visit us in our store, we're at the Multiverse in Hurst, Texas. If you'd like to shop with us online, you can do that at www.multiverse.shop. Thanks. We'll see you next time.